Welcome back to another video, and today we got our SEC college basketball season preview. We've already done the Big 12, we've already done the Big East, we've already done the ACC, the Big Ten's coming tomorrow, and then our Week 1 college basketball Power 40 rankings will be coming Monday. So we got a lot of college basketball content, so if that interests you, make sure you go on there, subscribe. Along with that, college football videos every Tuesday, NFL videos every Wednesday, NBA videos every Thursday, and then of course MLB when that season is going. So we got a whole lot of content. So if any of that interests you, make sure you get on there, hit that subscribe button, turn on the noties to make sure you don't miss. We're at the time in the year where we're posting 4 times a week, so this is the place to be for sports content. So make sure you go on there, subscribe, and turn on those noties. Like this video if you enjoy. As always, links in the description. As always, X, Twitch, TikTok, and Discord. Combine Discord and TikTok. My bad. But with all that being said, let's just jump right into our 16-team league now with the additions of Texas and Oklahoma. And the SEC might be giving a Big 12 a run for their money this year. The SEC is really, really deep. Maybe they don't have the top. I would argue the Big 12 still has the better top-tier teams. I mean, the top 5 teams in the Big 12 besides the number 1 team in the SEC might be better than the rest of the SEC. I don't know, because there's some good teams still at the top of the SEC, but the top end teams do have to. You give that to the Big 12, but depth wise, the SEC might end up with more tournament teams than the Big 12. Don't be surprised if that happens. Starting off at the bottom though, and I don't really even feel good about this. I have Vanderbilt. Yes, it is a they do have a first year coach, limited NIL, but they bring in AJ Hoggard from Michigan State, which is, very interesting. I think that could honestly, you could argue, should get them higher up in these rankings, and I could see that, but when looking at the rest of the teams in the SEC, it's hard to say that they're better than any of these teams. Looking at our next team, Oklahoma, this is the team that I could see, like, realistically, you could argue should be 16. I mean, Porter Moser, he was very close to getting this team in the tournament last year. They finished 20 and 12, and just barely missed. They bring back 2 of their 5 starters from last year. They're gonna look completely different, but they do bring in a lot of veteran transfers, so that's definitely interesting. I mean, they're definitely a more complete team than Vanderbilt, so that's kind of why I give them the slight edge here, but you could argue they should be last. I wouldn't, put it past you. At number 14, I have LSU. Now, when looking at LSU, they also were an NIT team last year. They bring in Jordan Sears, who, from Tennessee Martin, you wouldn't think much of him. He averaged 21.6 points a game last year. He was the 9th highest in terms of points per game. They bring in Cam Carter from Kansas State, who averaged 15 points a game. They have some intriguing transfers. They also have a couple guys coming back. The guys that are coming back, they bring back Tyrell Ward, who was a very good 3-point shooter last year. They bring back Mike Williams, who was a guard for them last year. He's now going to be in his sophomore year. They bring back a couple of bigs. They actually bring back a whole lot. So LSU is a team that's interesting to look at. And honestly, they would be higher in most other conferences. But when you look at this league, I mean, you could make an argument that every single one of these top 14 teams has a shot to get into the tournament. I mean, now, obviously, all 14 won't. But there's a real chance the SEC gets 10 plus teams. Like, you could say 11, 12. That's not even crazy to say. It sounds crazy, but it's actually realistic. Number 13, I have Mississippi State. I'm a little bit lower on Mississippi State than others. They lose Tolu Smith, which is a pretty big loss. I mean, he was their guy over there. But they have Josh Hubbard, who won Freshman of the Week 5 times last year. He is back, and he's only going to get better. So that's definitely going to be interesting. They bring in a couple of transfers from Boston College and Penn State. Uh, Both of those guys shot above 37% from three, so that's definitely interesting. But again, when looking at the rest of these teams, I can't really get excited about Mississippi State more than a lot of these teams. A lot of projections have Mississippi State a lot higher than this. I don't know. I just can't really see it with them. Losing their best player definitely hurts. Number 12, I have South Carolina. This is another one I don't feel good about because South Carolina was a 6 seed in the NCAA tournament last year. They won 26 games, and four of their key rotational players come back. Colin Murray Boyles is a guy who was on the all freshman team last year, and he's definitely going to take the next step, at least I believe. Um, they do lose Michi Johnson, which is a pretty tough um, loss. He's over at Ohio State now, but I mean, I think it's reasonable to say South Carolina takes a step back um, in year three under Lamont Paris because last year they were just like very impressive. I mean, nobody expected that from them. I think it's reasonable to expect a step back this year, but I do expect them to still be, one of those bubble teams here, and have a chance to get into the tournament come February, late February. Number 11, I have Missouri. This is another one. I could see Missouri being way higher than this when it's all said and done. The reason I hesitate with Missouri is last year they were 0-18 in SEC play. Now, yes, they bring in a top 5 recruiting class, I believe, um, which is very impressive. Um, they bring in Mark Mitchell from Duke, former 5-star prospect. That's a good addition, at least in my opinion. They bring in a couple guys from some mid majors. Missouri's definitely an interesting team that I think could surprise some people this year. The only hesitation again is they didn't win a game in conference play last year, so I do worry about that a little bit. But it is a pretty different team than it was from last year. Definitely should be better. Number 10, I have Georgia though. Georgia started out hot last year, and they really the ship really sunk with them as the season went on. They made the NIT. They won a couple games there. Um, Asa Newell, I believe is his name. He's coming in a 5-star. They bring in App State transfer Justin Abson. So that's two bigs right there. They got a lot of role players coming in who I believe will step up. I think Georgia's definitely an interesting team. Um, I mean, yeah, they bring in a really good freshman class. Georgia's a team that has a whole lot of range. Georgia could be 8 when it's said and done. Georgia could be 15. So we'll see with the Bulldogs, but I do expect them to be pretty solid this year. A lot of people are saying they should be a tournament team this year. Number 9, I have Ole Miss. Now, this is kind of where I think we get to the safe tournament teams. I think the SEC is going to have safely 9 teams in. I think 10 through 14 are probably going to be bubble teams, but I think these top 9 teams should be in the tournament. Ole Miss last year finished 20-12 after starting out 13-0. But they returned 3 of their top 4 scorers. They bring in a transfer from Seton Hall, Dre Davis, who averaged 16.6 points a game. And I think under Chris Beard in year 2, they're going to take a step forward. I think that's fair to assume. He is a very good coach there. So I do expect Ole Miss to take a step forward this year. Number 8, I have Texas. I do expect Texas to take somewhat of a step back this year. Texas is an interesting team. They bring in Trayman Mark from Arkansas. They bring in a very talented transfer class, very talented freshman class. Trey Johnson is one of the most highly touted recruits in the country coming in this year. He's probably going to go to the NBA draft next year, so they'll have one really good season from him. They bring back a couple of the role guys who are going to get starting spots. I think Texas is a safe bet to get into the tournament. I think Texas is pretty safe here at 8. Number 7, I have the Florida Gators. Again, this is another one of those teams that brings back a lot. They were a 7 seed last year, and I do expect them to kind of be in the same range, maybe even a little bit better. Walter Clayton comes back. He was, their guy last year. He was an all-conference player. He could potentially get into that All-American conversation. Um, they bring back Will Richard. They bring back Alex Condon, I believe it's how you say his name, or Condone. It might be Condone. I forget. But they also bring in Elijah Martin from FAU, who, if John L. Davis wasn't there, I think he probably would be averaging close to 20 points per game. I think he is very good and very underrated. So Florida's a team that I'm actually very high on this year, and I think could potentially even finish higher than this, but it's hard for me to get past these top 6 teams. Number 6, I have Kentucky. Now, the story here is no more Coach Cal. He's off to Arkansas. They bring in um, Pope from BYU. I'm blanking on his first name. I just did the Big 12 preview yesterday, and I said his name. I'm blanking on the name right now, but just know BYU's coach is now at Kentucky, and they bring over Jackson Robinson from BYU. He will be joining his former coach at Kentucky at a new school, and he was very good last year. But pretty much, this is a whole new Kentucky team. They bring back they bring in a whole lot of transfers. Lamont Butler from San Diego State, he's on the team now. Kirk Carissa, he's on the team now. Kentucky's a wild card. Kentucky could finish top 3. Kentucky could finish outside the top 10. I mean, we really don't know. We're going to have to see how the roster gels, but the talent's definitely there for the Wildcats. This is kind of the lowest they've been ranked preseason, at least. It feels like in a long time. Number 5, I have Arkansas. Now, some might argue this is too low, and I could see it. But, I mean, a lot of this is John Calipari as the coach. I mean, you look at the roster, I don't know. It's hard to rank them ahead of these top 4 teams. I mean, they bring in DJ Wagner from Kentucky. They bring in John L. Davis from FAU, which is a huge addition. I mean, Arkansas is probably going to be a top 25 team most of the year, but it is hard for me to get around putting them any higher than this. I mean, I don't know. Well, we'll see. I mean, they bring in Boogie Fland, who is one of the most highly touted recruits. Um, I don't know. Yes, they bring in the number 3 recruiting class and the number 1 transfer class, but again, just kind of want to wait and see how the roster gels, because again, this team could be the second best team in the SEC. I wouldn't be shocked if they are. Number 4, I have A&M, though, and this is definitely a risky play because A&M's a team that I'm always high on preseason, and they always disappoint. And I'm going to do it again. Now, you could argue they should be 5, 6, 7. I think 4 is fine for them. They bring back Wade Taylor, who averaged, I believe, close to 20 points a game last year, and he is going to once again be probably all SEC team type player. I mean, they were a 9 seed last year and took number 1 seed Houston into overtime in the NCAA tournament. So I think it's safe to say that A&M will be a tournament team once again. I mean, 7 of their 9 players who started last year for them are back. Like I said, obviously Wade Taylor's back. I think Buzz Williams and the Aggies are in for another tournament appearance, and I think they'll be pretty solid this year. I think they'll be more consistent this year. I think that's what they would want to see, and I think they will be overall better and finish with a better record in league play. They were only 9-9 in SEC play last year, so I think they do definitely take a step forward in that regard. Number 3, I have Tennessee. Again, 2 through 5 is kind of interchangeable, at least to me. Tennessee's another wild card. I'm kind of giving them the benefit of the doubt, but you look at the roster, you could argue Tennessee should be, like, just on paper-wise, you could argue Tennessee as low as 7. I mean, I could really make the argument A&M, Arkansas, Kentucky, Florida all have better rosters on paper than Tennessee. Obviously, they lose Dalton Knecht. He is now in the NBA. But they bring back Zakai Ziegler. They bring back Meshack. I mean, this is a team that could either be very disappointing or once again very good. And I'm kind of again giving the benefit of the doubt there with Tennessee because they've always been um, a really good team. I mean, they bring in a lot of transfers. We'll see with Tennessee. I trust Rick Barnes. He's a really good coach. He made the Elite Eight last year. I think it's hard to say Tennessee isn't going to be a good team once again this year. Number two, I have Auburn. I think Auburn is going to be once again a very good team. They bring back Janai Broom. They bring back Dylan Cardwell, who were two of the best perimeter defenders in the country. So Auburn's going to be one of the best defenses in the country once again. They bring back their leading scorer, like I said, in Janai Broom. They were 27-8 last year. Now they did fall a little bit short in the tournament, losing in the first round. But I think them and Bruce Pearl definitely take some steps forward. They bring in some transfers. Chad Baker Mazar is still there. I think Auburn's a really, really good deep team. This is Bruce Pearl's probably one of his deepest teams he's ever had. I think Auburn's going to be potentially a top 4 seed once again. But number one, I think this is pretty clear. Alabama's in a tier of their own right. I mean, Alabama is a national championship contender at this point, and I don't know if anyone else in the SEC really is. I mean, that's what I was saying with the Big 12. I mean, the Big 12 has those top tier teams where you could argue those top 5 teams in the Big 12 all have Final Four potential. I think in the SEC, there's not 5 teams with Final Four potential, but you could argue the SEC could get 11, 12 teams in the tournament. So we'll see who's the better conference. I think there's definitely arguments for both. But when looking at Alabama, they make the Final Four last year and had the unfortunate reality of playing UConn in the Final Four, so they couldn't quite get past them. But they bring back Mark Sears, who is arguably the best player in the country. They bring back Grant Nelson, who is a very good player. Nate Oates is one of the best coaches in the league. Yes, there's going to be some new guys in the starting lineup, but they bring in the number 2 recruiting class along with bringing back Mark Sears, who is probably one of the favorites for National Player of the Year. I mean, Mark Sears is that good. I mean, he might be the best player in the country. He's that good. Alabama is going to be an elite team this year. They're going to compete for a national title under Nate Oates. I do fully expect that from them. I mean, if they're not a top 3 seed in the NCAA tournament, it might be a disappointing year. I mean, if they're a 4 seed again, I mean, Alabama is gearing up for a historic year, and I think they are going to live up to the expectations. I think it's clear they're in a tier of their own in the SEC. I think they are the clear number 1 team in this conference. But let me know what you think about my SEC season preview / predictions. Hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a comment what you think, what you agree, what you disagree. Love to debate down there. If you're new around here, make sure you subscribe, turn on the noties to make sure you don't miss whenever we upload. College basketball every Monday, college football every Tuesdays, NFL every Wednesday, NBA every Thursday. So if any of that interests you, along with MLB, when that season is going around, make sure you go on there, subscribe, like this video if you enjoyed. And I'll see you guys tomorrow with our final college basketball season preview video and the Big Ten video. And then obviously Monday, we'll have our Week 1 Power 40 rankings. Hope you guys enjoyed this one.